Welcome to the UDRCast. I'm your host, Bill W., coming to you live from the recovery capital of Canada. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for all your support all the time, in all ways, whether it's viewership or Patreon, support our work, whatever it might be. Thank you for supporting what we do, what I do. It means a lot to a lot of people, especially me. So today we are going to continue with our parenting and recovery segments. And I've been reaching out to a lot of people over the last little while, and Tamara, who works behind the scenes, she's been contacting various people, and we got a good number of people, and we're getting to the end of our recordings on that segment. Those recordings should be starting to come out on the UDRcast pretty soon. And today we have close to our 9th guest, I think. And we have Krystal Harrington. Hi, Krystal.
Hi, Bill.
How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, it's I've gotten to know you a lot better over the last while, and I've seen, like, in live action some of the challenges of being a mom in recovery, and I thought you'd be a perfect guest.
Yeah, I'm honored to be here and excited to share and hopefully empower some people out there, some parents in their recovery journeys.
Yeah, roger that. What do you got in your hand?
I got some turquoise here. It's my fidget stone.
Yeah, keeps you calm?
Yeah, it's going to help me today.
Good.
Settle those nerves.
Roger. Awesome. So, yeah, I don't know really where it's going to go, and it can kind of go anywhere. But how long have you been in Calgary now?
I've been in Calgary for 3.5 years.
3.5 years?
Yeah.
And where'd you come from?
I'm from Barrie, Ontario. Yeah, we moved here in August of 2021 during COVID times. Had to get the F out of Ontario.
Oh, yeah. Was it crazy?
It was insane. It was worse than here.
How come? What was going on?
Oh, just the isolation was so real. They were implementing the vaccines at that time, and you couldn't work or go anywhere without getting that. And for me, it was not suited for my best interest. And so I had the opportunity to move out here, and I ran with it. So yeah, I was like, yeah, let's get out of there. And then all that kind of came into place here. And it took about 8 months for me to be able to obtain employment out here, actually, because they implemented those mandates as well. Was
it at all more lax out here than it was out there?
Well, I came out here a little bit more lax myself, and it wasn't that I was fearful. It was more so everybody around me was fearful, and I just felt some freedom when I moved out here. I got to be free of everybody else's judgments of me and not going and following that, like the vaccines, right? Like I decided not to get them. So I had everybody kind of telling me, you should be getting it. When are you getting it? And I was like, I'm not getting it. And so I didn't have that following me here.
Awesome.
And I got to be free in my own choice.
That's good. That's good. How many years sober are you?
I am 3 years sober, almost 4. On Friday next week is my 4 years.
Woo!
Yeah, exciting.
Nice.
I'm very grateful to be here and on this recovery journey and to be free of those mind-altering substances. Yeah.
How many years have you been in recovery in total?
It would have been, my daughter is going to be 9 in April, and I probably would have had close to 10 years of sobriety. So I was in recovery. I've had just over 4 years of like actual recovery because I started going to meetings in 2020. But for me, I actually had some clean time before coming into the rooms in like this round of sobriety. But I didn't do it, like I didn't work a program. I just did it on my own with my own self-will and my own desire, or my own like non-desire to use anymore. Yeah.
So basically I'm hearing there's a big difference between just being sober and clean versus recovery.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100% there is, because when it comes to recovery, we're working a program, and we're actually like, for me, I'm doing the work. I got a sponsor. I started doing the steps, and I started really looking within myself instead of just when I was doing it beforehand without those tools, I did have a counselor, which was very beneficial for me, but didn't set me up for success in the sense of like maintaining my sobriety. So I feel like working the 12-step program for myself was really beneficial because I actually am able to understand a little bit more about me, digging within, forgiveness and self-forgiveness, number one. And then just learning to like let go, live my life and let others live their lives. And just a whole encompassing toolbox of greatness for me.
That's awesome, eh?
Yeah.
What other things do you do maybe that are outside the 12 steps for your recovery?
Yeah, so I went to school for social service work and counseling, and within those two, I was the client first. So I did a lot of work on myself and like self-healing, learning different tools of emotional regulation and somatic work. So I practice breath work, and I also am a Reiki master. So I also practice Reiki, and I also incorporate indigenous practices. So smudging myself and praying and getting into nature, connecting with nature, and really connecting with that, like the spirit within us. I use different, physical activities and connecting with other individuals as well.
Awesome. Okay. It's kind of like running through my head about your comment about, being clean and then being in recovery. And, I think I'd like to touch on that for another minute because there is a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
And, I've been in recovery 10 years, and I also went through the steps, and I also incorporate many different modalities into my life now, and spirituality through indigenous culture being one, sweat lodges and sun dancing, and just, interacting with the culture, powwows and the people, meeting elders and just all that stuff. And then I've been trying other things too, like you mentioned breath work. I've done some of that. And I don't know, there just becomes a point as you follow a path of like recovery where it just becomes a way of life, and it's so much more than just being sober, right? But then as we kind of are able to compare ourselves to like old ways, you can only do that through the new ways. And then once you get some time in on the new ways, then you can feel like as you go back to the old ways, how it makes you feel not the best or whatever. And I think it's really important to talk about, at least for me, the patterns of being sober, the patterns of recovery, and then makes you want to do more of those things. And that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like, you don't struggle to work the program or a program. You're constantly doing it because you're over that hump, right? It's not like the fear of using that's pushing you anymore, is it?
No.
What pushes you?
It's the desire to do better. Every single day I make mistakes all the time, especially when it comes to parenting. And I don't necessarily like to go back to those defects of character, but they come up. And so for me, it's like constantly looking within and constantly seeing of how can I make this better? How can I make better choices? Or how can I learn to work through this and cope better than. So for me, it, like, I tend to fall back into like my old ways of like anger or emotional dysregulation, right? And for me, it's like really looking within to be able to achieve a better way of moving forward for not just myself, but for my children too, because like absolutely they deserve to learn new ways than what I was taught.
And so for much of your life, you just went through life and were kind of maybe controlled by the unconscious and just reacted to life. And then you started being aware of these things. And now that you're aware of them and when they come up and when you need to look at things, and I know you're not beating yourself up anymore, and that's a beautiful thing that really promotes self-love. But what are the things that you do to, once you are aware and these things like crop up and they maybe keep happening, what type of things do you do to try to help like change it?
Well, definitely I reach out to my sponsor for support, and I tell on myself, like I said, I'm not perfect, and I am human, and making mistakes, and it's definitely like reaching out for support, and really acknowledging, that when I do make a mistake, I apologize and I make an amends to, say, my children right away, instead of just shoving it under the rug as if it doesn't happen. So I take accountability for my actions, and whereas like that was something that was never taught to me, or like I didn't do until now. So I think that's a big step forward for me, and just being accountable and knowing that, hey, and giving myself that self-love, like, hey, I've made a mistake, it's okay. Just really connecting with myself, and honoring myself, and like, hey, I made a mistake and I can move forward from this. I think acknowledging that is huge in itself.
Does your sponsor get you to do like written inventory? Do you do a lot of journaling? Like, do you get it out in another way also and look at it?
Yeah. So my sponsor does get me to write down my fears, look at the fears, or what is it, right? And then we'll talk about it in that sense. Doing an inventory, I've been slacking on that area, but I do journal, or I write it out to get it out of my head, definitely. And then sometimes like on side things is like I'll pull cards, like tarot cards, and then I'll just, whatever comes up for me there, and then I'll journal from there as well. So it's kind of incorporating different things depending on where I'm at in that sense, right?
Awesome. Okay, let's kind of walk back into your life. Like, you grew up in Ontario?
Yeah, I did.
Brothers, sisters?
I have a twin brother, and I have an older sister. So my sister is 9 years older than me. And my brother and I, he was born 15 minutes before me.
No way.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So take us back to like what it was like growing up, and what were your parents like? What was it like for Krystal being a kid, and, did parents play favorites? Did you feel left out, or were you the favorite and they were left out? And let's kind of walk us through what it was like growing up.
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't really remember too much of my childhood. There's little things I can remember. I don't remember much about my parents, other than my dad didn't have the best tools for emotional regulation. So I was often met with like anger and hostility, and forms of abuse, I want to say. It wasn't so much physical, but mental. And my mom was loving and kind, but she still was like in her ways of how she was raised and brought up, and that was a different time, Mm-hmm. So for me, my brother often acted like my father as well. And growing up, I had like two dads, two men telling me what to do and bossing me around and bullying me and stuff. So it was hard for me. I just remember, especially around the age, like my teenage years, 13 and stuff, I was really awkward and I didn't know who I was. I was trying to figure that out coming into my own. And so, like I said, I don't remember much about my childhood, but definitely my teenage years, I could see like the defiance coming out of me. When I was about 15 is when I started getting a little bit more attention from boys. I looked different, like my hair was really long and I started wearing makeup and, getting attention from men in different ways. And it was like teenage boys, right? But I think that's where the changes started to happen for me. Well, I know that's exactly where those changes started to happen for me. So childhood, I don't know why I don't remember a lot of my childhood, but I can remember my teenage years.
So what kind of changes did you notice happening?
Well, definitely the defiance in me, because when I was in public school, I know that I was a good student. I listened well. I always wanted to do well and get good grades and, prove to my parents that I could do these things and get good grades. I was always an A+ student, always helping the teacher, so the teacher's pet. But then I got into high school and I started hanging out with different crowds of people. And like I said, I was getting attention that I'd never received before. So I was getting told that I looked hot or whatever, sexy or something, right? And so for me, that was like, oh, what is this? This is new attention. And I started following kids in a different path. And it was more so skipping school and starting to experiment with drinking and marijuana. And then, around grade 10 is when I started experimenting with harder drugs. And my life changed. I took a hit of acid and everything changed.
That'll do it.
Yeah, everything changed. So
I remember my first hit of acid. It was a New Year's Eve party. I think I was 16. And I was just actually walking with my daughter downtown the other day, and I walked across 8th Ave, and that's where I bought my hit of acid. I bought 4 hits of acid for me and my buddies, and I took that hit of acid, and I thought I was going to die. And I was in the mirror screaming, like, to God, get me off this stuff. But then I was coming down a little later, and I'm like, fuck, I love this stuff. And my life changed forever, too.
yeah, it was a trip for me. It was, such a trip. It was like 12 hours of extreme, intense tripping out
Right.
and laughing. A lot of laughing. I was like, whoa, what is this? You know?
Right. So as you start experimenting and you're getting this new attention, when you look back at your life, and like I think, our society, and especially young girls and young women, they kind of start developing maybe not all negative patterns or ways of going through life based on the attention, but what did the attention from boys do? Did it change you at all, or like?
Yeah.
What?
I'd say it changed me a lot. It definitely made me feel like I was wanted, and that I was desirable. But I also did things that I wouldn't necessarily do, so I crossed boundaries that I wouldn't normally have crossed, all for the name of attention and being that wanted sort of thing. So it made me vulnerable in many ways. And now looking back, like I can see the switch in me, from where I was before. And like that 13-year-old, I remember when I was in grade 8, I made a speech, and the speech was, I would never do, it was about drugs and alcohol. And in that speech, I was like, I will never do drugs and alcohol. And fast forward to like 7 years, I was a full-blown cokehead. And my life was in ruins. So like how quick my mentality changed in that. Mm-hmm. And it was all just a short span of time, from 13 to 15, I'm doing drugs. And then from 15 to 18, I'm highly addicted to cocaine, to the point like it's almost killing me. It was just so many quick, fast changes.
And you were living with your parents through, the beginning of your addiction?
Yeah, I lived with my parents until I was 26. Yeah.
Okay, so from 15 to 18, and you were getting highly addicted to cocaine, powder cocaine?
Yep.
And partying a lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was, started off with the acid and then mushrooms, and then it went to ecstasy, because ecstasy was a big thing back then. Mm-hmm. And that was around 16, 17. I was doing ecstasy with some friends, and oh my goodness, it was so bad. Like just up for days. I couldn't eat. And then I was like, I'm not doing this anymore to myself. So I already had like a desire to not use that stuff because of the way that it made me feel. And then a couple of months after that, I got introduced to cocaine. And my friend was like, oh, just try it. It's kind of like E, but it's not. But here, just try a little bit. And I tried it and I loved it. I was like, oh, fuck. Here we go. I love this shit. And
did your parents not notice things were happening and you were changing and kind of going down a bad path?
They did. But I was so defiant, and I was just not willing to listen to them, that I was out of the house most of those times. Like I wouldn't really use in their house. And if I did use in their house, it would be hidden sort of thing. There wasn't much that my parents could say, because I would fight them back. And I would be like, no, I'm doing this. This is my life. And I know everything, because I was that know-it-all teenager. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they didn't say, well, if you're going to live like that, I guess you're going to have to live on your own.
No, they didn't kick me out, which was very shocking. And I'm grateful that they did not. But they definitely put up with a lot of shit from me. It was pretty much badass little hellion in their home.
And you were running the household by the sounds of it?
Yeah. When I was home, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that you knew that they weren't ever going to kick you out, and you just kind of use that as some of your motivation to just do whatever you want?
Not really. Like I was always fearful of what they thought of me. So I did try to hide a lot of it, you know. I didn't really, my addiction was like at my ex-boyfriend's house, and I would stay at his house or his parents' house quite often. So by the time I think I was 17, my parents let me start staying out with my boyfriend. But before that, it was hidden. I'd hide in my bedroom and be like high until 2 a.m. and they wouldn't know because they were sleeping, right? And then they get up for work and then they do their thing, and there I am just hiding it. So a lot of my addiction for my parents was often a lie. Like I lied a lot.
Okay. Let's go from like 18 into your early 20s, and what does that look like?
So when I was 18, that's when like the coke was pretty bad. Like I started using with my ex, and he was a drug dealer, so it was free for me, and I could do as much as I wanted because then I found out he was smoking it. So then I was like, oh fuck, here we go. And everybody around me was smoking it, and I decided not to do it that way because I could see how bad it was for them, and I was addicted to one. I didn't want to become addicted to the other, so I just kept with doing lines, right? And by, I think it was my 19th birthday, my niece head-butted me and she broke my nose accidentally. But it shattered everything inside my nose. So I went into the nose doctor like 7 days later. He's like pissed that I didn't come in sooner, but I was still busy fucking trying to get coke up my nose and I couldn't, but I still tried. But yeah, I found out I had an inch hole in my nose. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so I had to go in and get my nose rebroken and then get rhinoplasty because how my nose shattered, it like basically exploded whatever cartilage was left, and it blocked off my nasal passages. So then I couldn't breathe. And so I had a nose job done for free. But for me, I was like, oh, I should be the poster child for kids in high school for not doing cocaine, right? This is what it can do to you. And so into my early 20s, I went from like that extreme trauma happening. And then my ex-boyfriend and we got arrested. And my sister was like, hey, if you're going to continue to see him, you're not going to see your niece and nephew anymore. And so that woke me the fuck up in a way. And I was like, okay, I stopped seeing him. And I was about 90 pounds when all that happened. And as soon as I stopped seeing him, it was like easy for me to stop doing coke. But I went from like 90 pounds to 130 pounds in 2 months. And then I got boobs, I got an ass, I got weight on me, I got more attention from men. And then I started going to the bars. And then I started becoming more sexually active. I broke up with my ex, and I started to party more and like go sleep with random people after the bar. And I just really, again, doing things that I wouldn't normally do, but it was because I was drinking more. And I was like, I didn't see the self-worth in myself back then. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that filling it with men's attention would bring me what I truly wanted, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know. I didn't do any healing work. And then into my 20s, all the way into my like 30s, I drank, and I always found people who were either dealers or bikers or something like that, and I always got into that crowd. So I never got out of that cycle for many years.
And another thing about being an attractive woman in this area of life, which is, you know, drugs and alcohol and bars and the scene like that, a lot of women don't have to pay for it. No. Right? And so you spent many years being able to ride free drugs and alcohol, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, a lot of years. I mean, I did end up paying for it at times, but most times it was given to me, you know? And because I was like the party girl, so people wanted to see how fucked up I could get so they could laugh at me afterwards, you know? Like, look at her. But I was just like riding that free train, right? Let's just go. I look back at it now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like no more do I walk in that shame and guilt, but still it's like, holy crap, what did I do?
Yeah, roger that. And so let's kind of catch up to, where did you meet Vance?
Yeah. So I actually, I'll share that I moved out to Alberta
Okay.
in 2011, I think it was, or 2010. And I came out here to get away from that lifestyle. And I didn't, well, I met a couple of people who used out here. And so again, it kind of came back into that light. And then I went to Fort McMurray and I lived out there for 11 months. And that for me was like just triggered my addiction again. I got right back into working. I worked for bikers. I ran a bikers bar, and then I met some guy there and we dated for like a chunk of time that I was out there, and he ended up trying to beat me up. And I left. I called my parents. I'm like, can I come home? And so I came back, and that was 2012, 2013, I think it was. And so the following summer, I moved into a place with a girlfriend of mine, and she had her friend come over, and she brought her friend, who was Vance.
And this is back in Ontario again?
This was back in Ontario again, yeah. And so I met Vance in my backyard, and it was like instant connection. We had a connection over alcohol and drugs, and he had a brand new truck that his mom bought him. But we sat outside and we just chatted for like hours that night, the first night that I met him. And then that kind of kick-started our relationship. And our relationship, like every relationship I had, was based on alcohol and drugs. And so, that was the beginning of the relationship with Vance, was that night in August. And then quickly went into like dating really fast. And I moved in with him and his mom like 9 months later. So it was a really fast moving relationship.
And solely based around drugs and alcohol mostly?
Yeah. And I didn't know like Vance had his own addiction history. And for me, I just saw that there was this guy and his mom was really sick. She had cancer. She had ended up ultimately losing her voice box and from the cancer. And so he was devastated and he was like hurting. And here I am coming in to rescue him. And I thought that I could help him in many ways. But selfishly, I was, doing it for my own gains of like getting him to want me. Mm-hmm. And and so we thought that him moving in with his mom would be a good thing and we could all help her. And it was just really, really bad decisions. Bad decision after bad decision. But yeah, that's he was a really funny man. And so very charismatic and always made me laugh. And that was one of the things that really drew me to Vance, is just how funny he was and how much of a character he was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you a rescuer?
I am. Yeah, absolutely.
Of animals, cats and dogs and men?
Yeah, I am. Absolutely. Yeah, I always feel like I can be that helper, right? Well, I always thought I could. Now I know I can't save anyone. But that was definitely something that I did. Mm-hmm. I did go to. And
like, as you said, you were doing it because you wanted something, right? And that's what we learn in recovery, is like that self-seeking component and how it hides and how it actually doesn't really serve us in the long run and blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of like what we were talking about before. But so you meet Vance and you're not a mom yet.
Nope. So
and you bounced around to Alberta once and had some bad relationships. When you look back, like from that point where you met Vance, looking back, were your relationships with men healthy, or were they were okay, or were they not healthy?
Never healthy. Never healthy relationships. I didn't know what a healthy relationship was, to be honest. Still learning today how to have a healthy relationship. And definitely all relationships that I did have were toxic in one way or another. And mostly were based off of alcohol and drugs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the common connection that I had with them. And that was the common denominator for the toxicity. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So walk us through what happened with Vance.
Yeah, heavy. I got pregnant with Kennedy and that summer. So it was about a year after. It wasn't Kennedy, sorry. I got pregnant, and that was the first time I ever got pregnant, and that was about April. And I actually, I the baby didn't form. So I ended up having to have a DNC. And so it's a surgery too, And so after that, Vance and I made a commitment that we were going to have a kid together. We were both ready to have a child. And previous Vance has a child in Manitoba that he didn't ever get to see due to his alcoholism and drug use. The other person decided, I don't want this unless you're going to clean up your life, period. And so he didn't, and he ran away, and he came to Ontario, and that's how we met. Again, saving. And so...
But you didn't really know his background of substance abuse and his major problems with drugs and alcohol.
Well...
Until later.
But I mean, I could see the signs, but of course I brushed past those red flags. I was like, yeah, no, I can save this guy. I'll save him. It's me. I can do it. Fuck. So yeah, we committed that we were going to have a child together. And like 3 months later, and that was August of 2015, I was pregnant with our daughter. And my pregnancy with him was horrendous. It was fucking terrible. No easy way to put it. He didn't stop. So like the night before that I found out that I was pregnant, I was getting drunk and doing coke. And then the next day I was like, oh, I don't feel good. Like this is not a normal hangover. I took a pregnancy test and sure enough I was pregnant. So I'm okay. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop all substances and I'm going to, take care of this unborn baby. And he continued to drink. He continued to party. And part of me was like, what the fuck, man? Like, I had to wake up beside him smelling like booze every single day, or he's trying to piss beside the bed. And just because he's so out of it, right? And so my pregnancy for myself was like filled with some trauma because I felt like I had to stop everything, but he didn't. And then I ended up one night relapsing in my pregnancy, and it devastated me. It really did devastate me, and I felt really scared, and I felt scared for my unborn child, and I felt so much shame and guilt. And I shared that afterwards with a counselor, and she brought it to light to me that just because I was pregnant doesn't mean my addiction stops. And that was like a really empowering moment for me to understand and give myself some compassion, because truly and honestly, like it didn't stop because I didn't work on myself. I didn't have those tools and I didn't know what, you know what I mean? So instead, I just escaped my reality.
It was your first outside influence of somebody telling you your disease renders you powerless.
Yeah.
And she said it in a different way than we do in recovery, but that was like a first snippet, I guess.
Yep, it was. It absolutely was. And I basically told Vance throughout the pregnancy, because there was one night that like he locked me out of the house. It was 2 a.m. He flipped tables, like punched holes in the walls. And I was like 9 months pregnant and pounding on the door, and he wouldn't let me in. And then the next day I was like, this is it. Like, you're either going to stop your shit or we're going to separate and I'm going to do this on my own. And so he went a couple of weeks, and I ended up giving birth to Kennedy shortly after that. And the day that I got home from the hospital, he had beers for us. And then here you go, have a drink. So it was just like easily ready back to his way of getting back to his alcoholism and like making it okay for me to drink, right?
Do you remember walking in the house that day after you got back from the hospital? Was he at the hospital with you?
Yeah, I did end up having him at the hospital with Kennedy. I was like, you have to stop drinking or else you're not going to be able to come into the room with us when she's born.
So walking home into the house, and there was beer waiting, and do you remember what it was like? Because now you have a baby with you.
Yeah.
And you're coming home to your, not husband, but boyfriend who you want to, build a life with. And the first thing he does is have beer and want to push it your way.
Yeah.
Did you have thoughts like, this is fucked, or this is not right? Or was it like, whew, right on?
Yeah. Basically, I was like, right on, I can have a drink. I gave birth, I can have a drink. And then there's my family. You shouldn't be drinking. Because they were there too. And they're like, what are you doing? You just had a baby. You shouldn't be drinking. And I'm like, it's okay. Bring on the milk. Like, saying it's all good, because my disease was still there. And it like...
It'll bring on the milk.
You know, the crazy things that we tell ourselves.
I'm going to make a shirt that says, bring on the milk.
Fuck, you should. But yeah, so that was like a little bit of it, you know, and then Kennedy was about 4 months old, and I felt like really defeated in a sense because Vance was still able to live his life. He was still able to party and do drugs. And I just was like, I have this thing attached to me 24/7. And I sat on the steps and I was having a smoke and I was like, man, like I just want to be able to go back to my old life and I just want to party again. I don't want to do this. And for me, it was like, yeah, it was like all encompassing of this like dread of being a mom.
Oh.
And I just wanted to be free again. And
was there any guilt of having those thoughts?
No.
No.
Not then.
No.
No, because I was selfish. I was fucking selfish. I just wanted to fucking be free, you know? But then I ended up relapsing with Coke shortly after that. And yeah, it took me a few months to realize, like, I don't want to live my life like this. Like, I sat there in front of Kennedy and I thought I was going to die one night. Like, I literally thought I was going to die. And I'm like, I'm not going to live my life like this anymore. And that's when I decided to get sober for the very first time, like other than my pregnancy, which I had a relapse. So that was the first time that I was like, okay, I'm stopping this shit. Yeah. And then, 11 months later, I found out I was pregnant with Ocean, my son.
When you first started to get sober, I guess, non-pregnancy sober, how'd you do it? Where'd you go? Did you do it on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it on my own. There was a couple of factors that came into play. So another fight with Vance, another night of him like just going off his rocker, throwing things, smashing glass in the house. Like I'm like, I was in the bed with Kennedy and I had an actual panic attack that night. That was the first time that I ever actually had a panic attack. And I was freaking out. I'm like, I can't live like this. And she doesn't deserve to live like this. So it was like, I made a conscious choice that night to not go back and live my life like that. So I left and I went to my parents' house. So I always had the support of my family. And I shared with him, like, if you're going to continue on like this, we're done. You're going to have supervised visits. We're going to go to court, whatever. And so he went on his own little like tangent for about a week, ended up in detox, came home, and he started going to AA. So I started going to Al-Anon, not thinking that I had the problem. It was him. He has the problem, not me. So that was my first little snidbit about like alcoholism and powerlessness, but in a different light, right? Powerless of the addict. And so, shortly after that is when we went to Mexico for my friend's wedding. And just before that, I found out I was pregnant with Ocean. And we got the stomach flu real bad. And it was like the night before we were leaving that Vance and I were both so sick. And he's like, if I'm still puking, he's like, I'm going to start drinking. And he had been sober for 6 months, and same with me. And so when we went to Mexico, he started drinking that whole trip. And it was not just like pick it up, put it down. It was wake up, start drinking all day long, go back, pass out, wake up, do the same thing over and over again. And for me, it was like, I didn't realize how bad how the cycle goes, right then and there. But anyways, after that, then I went to Newfoundland with my family, my sister, my mom, my niece, and Kennedy, my daughter. And Vance relapsed really, really bad. And that kind of was the beginning for it was a shift for a new beginning at that time, which I didn't realize. But it ended up, I don't know what happened. He was missing for 2 days. The hospital in Toronto called me and said, he's here. He has a brain bleed. You got to get back. And I'm in Newfoundland and I'm pregnant, 16 weeks pregnant with our son. And I came back and I was fucking pissed. And I'm like, as if you did this and I, like all the things, but I didn't understand addiction then. So anyways, it basically, I suggested to him, go get help. Well, I said, go get help or I'm leaving. And instead of him getting help, I ended up leaving because he was so resistant on getting that help. But I had to take care of our daughter. I had to take care of our unborn son. And I had to go back to work because I needed to pay for everything, right? So that was a new beginning for me and that's where I started to get support. I got support from a friend who suggested to me to go to the women and children shelter. And then with that, I got into addiction counseling. For not myself, but for dealing with somebody else's addiction, someone that your spouse's addiction or whatever. But that's where I started to learn more about addiction and my disease.
In counseling, in your own courses?
That was for me. That wasn't for my courses. That was actually, it was called the Umbrellas program. And it was for women who were experiencing addictions, either while pregnant or somebody else's addictions, like their spouse's addiction.
Yeah.
And so it's the first time that I was actually really honest about my addiction with somebody else and my life and the traumas that I went through. So it was a big awakening for me in that time.
So instead of always looking at Vance and his addiction and how it's affected you, you finally had a gut level concession that I think it's me also.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And at that time, when I finished with her, I had a year sobriety. So I was really empowered, for me to continue and maintain my sobriety. But I didn't really realize the depths of the despair that addiction is, for me. I didn't actually deal with it. I just kind of covered some bases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're now not with Vance?
No, so in that year, I separated with him. I ended up going to court. I filed for sole custody. I had a lawyer through the legal aid, which was also a godsend. So he ended up fighting me in court and just being a complete ass, not fighting for the kids, but just fighting me. And the judge he didn't end up showing up for the last bit of the court. And the judge gave it to us uncontested that I had sole discretion of visitations for the kids, the sole custody of the kids, and I could make those choices for them if they could see their dad or not. And so he ended up having supervised visits. And so he couldn't make those visits. He would oftentimes show up. If he did show up, he smelled like alcohol, so they'd have to cancel the visits. And it was devastating for me, but it was devastating for Kennedy for sure, because Ocean was just a little baby. And I was in the courtroom with Ocean breastfeeding him, and I had to go to court and face Vance. And this was the person that I loved so fucking much. But now I'm fighting with him, fighting for our kids and fighting for him to get better, but he just couldn't see it. He was stuck in his own demise, He
just thought you were being a
vindictive bitch is exactly what he thought.
Taking his kids and
that's exactly what it was. And it was I still gave him the opportunity to see the kids. I never took that from him. He ultimately did that himself.
Did the judge, was it disclosed that he was a drug addict and that you had substance abuse issues too in court to the judge?
Yeah. Yeah. Vance shared with the court that I relapsed in my pregnancy, that I did drugs while I was pregnant. And, the judge also, I said, but I've been sober for this amount of time and I've changed my ways. And so the judge saw that, right? And they could see.
He hadn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep going.
And, okay. So basically after the whole court process and then the supervised visits, he wasn't making them. I put the visitations to once a month and he was able to make those. So that was good. We had a good little run there. I heard that he went back by all of this too. I had a restraining order. We had no contact. He was not to contact me or at all, indirectly or directly. And so in that time, it was just before COVID, I found out that he went to rehab and he had 3 months sobriety. I saw somebody sent me a picture of screenshot of him threatening to kill himself. And I knew that things have gone back because that's usually what he did when he was using. And so I found out that he got flown out to Manitoba to go see his family out there, and they were going to help support him. And I heard that he was doing okay, but then I got a phone call from his brother, ex-brother-in-law, that he was back on the streets. He was drinking. He was just, So anyways, I was pissed at this point in time. I'm like, you ran away from your kids. You're not choosing to get better, and now you're going back to this shit. So I ended up canceling the visitations altogether through the Access Center because he wasn't even in Ontario anyways. He was out in Manitoba. And that was a hard and tough decision for me to make. But it was also like, okay, we can't keep doing this to the kids. To me, it was fucking them up in a sense of like, where's my dad? I don't know. I don't know where your dad is, right? And then the day I canceled him, or the day after, there he is, fucking back in Ontario. And I was like, what the hell are you doing here? But he started stalking me on Facebook. He started stalking me. I was running a support group. So in this time, I went back to school. So we'll just go back a little bit. I went back to school in 2019 for social service work. And I also relapsed in that time. And we'll just take it back for a minute because this part of it, like the part of like, when Vance and I separated, it was devastating to me and it caused me a lot of trauma, but it also was major depression. I ended up becoming very depressed and I was taking care of 2 kids on my own. Ocean was sick for his first 8 weeks of life. And so for me, that was another traumatic event. We had to be rushed to hospital. He had to be have emergency surgery. And he was okay, thank God, afterwards. But it was still like a lot after a lot. And I had a neighbor who was like, hey, you want to have some beers with me tonight? And I'm like, I haven't drank in like 18 months, but okay, sure, why not? And that started off my addiction again, right? And so in the midst of me getting full custody of the kids and everything else, I had started to drink. But when Ocean was about 18 months old, I ended up relapsing with Coke. And I had 2.5 years clean from that. So that for me right there was so devastating. But it was like, it was so easy how quick I spiraled back down. Like I didn't even remember doing it. But the next day I was like, I got told I did it. And that's all I could think about. Well, now I want to do it again because I've done it and I don't remember doing it. So I don't remember what it feels like. And that's just like craziness of addiction, right? So I ended up using that Coke for 9 months on and off, like throughout on weekends or stuff like that, partying with friends. And I had the kids in my care. And so part of me, it was like, sometimes the kids weren't in my care, but sometimes the kids were in my care. And for me, that was like, that weighed heavy on me. So that's where I kind of felt some empathy and I started to understand addiction a little bit more, and I felt some empathy for Vance. And then in 2019 is when I went back to school. And that's where I started to see, hey, if I'm doing this shit, I'm a hypocrite. Like I'm going to be advocating for other people in their recoveries, or I'm going to be working with families and possibly CFS. And, I'm like, I can't be doing this shit if I'm working in this aspect, like this area. And so, I started to be like, okay, I don't want to live my life like this. And I already knew I didn't. I was already pissed at myself for relapsing, but I just didn't know how to get unstuck from it. But again, I got in touch with my addiction counselor and I started that process. And then I met somebody else and started dating him. And he didn't drink and he didn't do drugs. So it was, the only thing he did was smoke weed. So it was my easy way out. I kind of used him in a way to get away from that shit. And that was January 10th was my clean date from cocaine. And now I have 5 years sober from that. So I'm fucking grateful because I surpassed it. And, I'm still continuing on doing these the hard work of like looking within, but also letting it go. Right. Mm-hmm. But then, fast forward to Vance again, 2020, and I started running a support group for moms in recovery. And posting on Facebook. And so he started seeing those posts because they were public and started commenting on them. And then he knew where I was working out of. So then he came to my work. And like literally, I was having a smoke and I look over and I'm like, holy fuck, there's Vance. I haven't seen him up close and personal since court. And that was like a couple years before. So I was like fear, panic, I was like shook. And I ended up walking across the street to my car and I just started shaking, like vibrating. And I asked, the people came over to me. Some people were like, are you okay? And I was like, that's my ex. He's not supposed to be around me. We have a restraining order. And so he was asked to leave and he wouldn't leave. And it was kind of like, this guy knows. He knows that there's a restraining order, but he just wants to be like, nope, I'm whatever. So I ended up calling the police. And after a couple of hours, they showed up and he ended up leaving and they found him and they charged him. They charged him because they thought he was stalking me and I thought he was stalking me. And so then that's when I got asked by my then boyfriend to move out west so that we could have some freedom in a sense of like getting away and he can't find me and he can't find me and the kids, you know? So that was a pretty stressful, traumatic time. And when I moved out to Alberta, I had to switch all the court documents to Alberta courts because he ended up getting a lawyer asking to see the kids. And I said, okay, you can see the kids through supervised visitations because I'm not coming back to Ontario. Like I had full discretion of like visitations and sole custody. So I was safe in that aspect. But he didn't get back to me. I had to do the whole court process again by myself and navigate all of that out, get everything switched over to Ontario or to Alberta. And then he, like in May of 2021 or 2022 it was, he wrote me and he's like, where are my children, you fucking cunt? That's the last thing I've heard from him. And I got a call December 1st of 2022, and it was his ex-brother-in-law, and he said Vance was found dead. It's going to make me cry. He was found dead. And for me, it was like, fuck. I broke down. I had Kennedy in the car. We were just coming back from the doctors, and it was like, took me to my knees. I just screamed, like, as much as I was fucking pissed at the guy, I never wanted him to die. I wanted him to get help, right? And unfortunately, that's the reality of addiction, right? It took him so far away from his true self. That loving, funny fucking guy that I had fallen in love with was no more. And he was somebody that I didn't even know anymore. So, I had to do a lot of work around that. The grief,
Hold on. That moment you got the call and you're in the car and your kids are there and like it all kind of hits you. Did you tell the kids right then and there?
No.
Did they know something was wrong with you?
Yeah. Ocean wasn't with me. He was at daycare. Kennedy, I had just brought home from the doctors because she had strep throat. Mm-hmm. And I was in tears all day. And she was on the couch. She's like, Mommy, how come you were crying? How come you've been crying all day? And I had to talk to a couple of pillars to figure out how to break the news to them.
And by this time you're living and you're settled in Calgary or
we were in
Cochrane? Airdrie?
Yeah, we were in Airdrie at this time. And I talked to a couple of pillars and they were like, just wait, like you don't need to share with them. But a part of me was like, I feel like if it was me, I'd want to know. And Kennedy saw me. She saw me drop to my knees. She heard the scream, So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with these guys. And they're 5 and 6 years old. They don't really know who their dad is. Kennedy did a little bit more because she was she had 3 years of getting to know him. But Ocean he didn't. But that was really hard. That was a really hard night. And I'll never forget it because that exact same night when the kids were gone to bed, I ended up going into my top drawer for something, and I had this book that my family, all of us had notebooks to write in to each other one day. And Vance had written in that book to me. And I was like, no fucking way. And when I went to bed that night, I was filled with all the good thoughts, all the good memories of everything good that Vance had brought. And I was letting go. I was letting go of all those hard times. And I was just filled with this new love that I had never experienced for him, which was, it's so even hard to explain it, how it all happened. But it was just, it was really fucking incredible to feel that love again and like to let go of that hate and that anger that I had so many years of held on to for him. And that, like, as much as it sucks because I sit here and I'm like, why couldn't I let go of it before? But I didn't know how. I didn't have a program. I wasn't working on that part of it. So, and then this program, right? Like the people in it, and just, I'm grateful to be in working the 12-step program, because had I have not, I probably would have relapsed after his passing. But because I know, I have a newfound way of life, I know how to deal with those hardships now, even though they're really heavy, but I have tools and I have people and I have...
Did you get surrounded by a lot of pillars and people supporting you, or?
I was here like without a lot of people, but I had a lot of people outside of like the community, the friends that I did have here. They were really wonderful, and getting to meetings and sharing my experience was also powerful in itself. But then I had a lot of family, and
so you hadn't fully built your community of people that you kind of have now. It was just starting to build then.
Yeah, because we had only been here for, I think it was just over a year at that point in time.
And you were in Cochrane and then Airdrie.
Yeah.
And then it was really when you moved to Airdrie or Calgary when the fellowship really grew up around you, which...
It was Airdrie where I gained a lot of fellowship women in recovery. And that was more so after Vance had passed away, that the community started to come together for me. But it was also getting out of my head and getting out of the house, because I was stuck in some negative times in that time, because I moved out here with somebody and we separated after 8 months of us being together. And so that was hard for me to move all the way out here, away from everybody and everyone I knew and my family with my 2 kids, and then be on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to, that was my first like relationship in sobriety as well. And, he didn't like the fact that I went to meetings, and he was really jealous of the recovery. He's like, when are you going to stop going to meetings? And, and I'm like, this is my life now. I'm never going to stop going to meetings because it's my lifeline. But he didn't get that. And that was part of our struggles in our relationship. And one of the reasons why I left too, because it was like, I need somebody who's going to understand it. Right. And in that sense, and not be jealous and not be hurt that I have to go to a meeting once a week. That's all I got to go to is once a week meetings. So, yeah.
So ever since you first had Kennedy, you've been just slugging it out pretty much as a single mom.
Yep.
Navigating courts, navigating kids, navigating sicknesses, trying to navigate, the odd relationship that kind of comes in. And all the while navigating ex-partner who's the father of your kids, who's in total active addiction, who's despising you.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of parenting in a survival mode, trying to get well. And that's probably been sounds like a shit show.
Yeah. Easy way to put it.
But I sit here as a man thinking about how many women must live like that to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not discrediting that men don't go through whatever they go through, and it's very difficult. But I've always had a lot of deep respect for single moms and what they do, and including my ex-wife, who had to do what she had to do while I was in my addiction, and even when I wasn't in my addiction, I was in my workaholism, which was a different addiction, and kind of her walking on eggshells, and just the load she had to bear for a long, long, long time. And, you're doing that too, and you're still doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, as we kind of get into like where we are ish today, and, the passing of Vance and being a mom, what's the mom part been like, having a parent that they didn't really know, and then navigating that, and then new relationships and your own recovery and getting them to their events and their schools and, trying to work and go to school? Like, what's that been like?
Yeah, it's been a shit show. It's been, honestly, I feel like as women, and not to discredit a man, but like we just fucking have this crazy strength, and this drive. Like for me, at least, I have a drive that just pushes me to, like, no matter how hard it is, I still get up and I still fucking do it. And it's just this drive inside of me. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. There's been really good times, and there's been really hard times, clearly really hard times. Navigating, like, me going back to school as a full single parent, like, that in itself was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? But I got through it, and I actually made the dean's list. I didn't even graduate high school, but I made the fucking dean's list as being a single mom. Oh, it was so cool. And these guys are my little freaking supporters. They're my little cheerleaders, but they're also my biggest teachers. And I appreciate the fuck out of them. And then there's days where I'm like, I don't even want to be a mom. I just text my sponsor the other day. I was like, I'm done. I am done being a mom. I have to deal with everybody else's emotions every single day. And on top of that, my own emotions. Because as you know, in recovery, we're fucking feeling our feelings. And I never felt my feelings before recovery. So that's been, and it's like, where is this coming from? And trying to deal with my own, like, anger and mom rage, and trying not to take everything out on the kids or taking their shit personally. It's all new lessons and learning lessons in this life of mine. And I don't know how I continue to do it, but I just do. Like, Ocean has a lot of, I'd say, complex trauma. He's been diagnosed with ODD and ADHD. He is my biggest teacher in many ways. So much energy, but he, like...
So we'll say your biggest teacher and sometimes the biggest thorn in your side.
100%. He is so hard sometimes to deal with, and like, I love him. He's so lovable and cute, but he can also be a little jerk to me. And he can be really mean to me, and he pulls out a lot of things in me that I don't like about me. At times can trigger me to no end, to doing some things that I like, screaming or yelling or swearing. And I'm just like, this is not who I want to be. This is not me, but it's pulling this crap out of me that I never thought was inside of me before. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely like, and he's showing me compassion and unconditional love. Same with Kennedy. Kennedy is now 8, and she's got this attitude that it's me. Like, oh, there's me again. It's constantly, they're just reflecting me. It's really funny to say that, and I can see it now, but it's like, when you're in the shit, oh my gosh, it can feel like you can't get out of it, and there's no escaping it, and that good old saying, this too shall pass, has come up so many times for me. But it's like, in those moments of chaos, it feels like you can't escape it.
Mm-hmm. This too shall pass. It's typically a saying of when things seem really bad. But it's also a saying of when things seem really good.
Yeah.
Because it's all going to pass.
Yeah.
Right? What does a typical morning look like? I know you work for one of the women's treatment centers here in Calgary now.
Yeah.
You started your own business. Let's go back to your business. So when did you decide, and what did you do, and what is it that you do? Just so our listeners can hear, and maybe they can reach out to me or to you, and I can connect them with you, and, as your self-employed entrepreneur.
Yes.
And in the stages of gaining traction in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So within my schooling, like, after Vance passed away, I went back for more schooling and took on a wellness counseling course. So I have a wellness counseling life coaching and Reiki holistic practice. So I offer one-on-one services of wellness counseling, which it focuses on mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical wellnesses. And in that, it's like just really holding space and letting people learn how to deal with their emotions. Like that is one thing I'm passionate about and being an advocate for, because for me, I was never taught how to deal with emotions. And like moving forward in this life, I think it's becoming more of a niche for people, and people really want to learn how to deal with it and not how to suppress it and escape. And, and then also addiction and supporting people in their recovery and or sober curious and navigating that journey. So I really like to hold space for people who are looking to dig within, let go of trauma and release, and also move forward with their goals and aspirations. And then with Reiki, it's really cool because when I had the moms group I had started, I had a Reiki practitioner come in and teach us Reiki, and I had no idea what it was. But it was really, really cool. And it was really empowering for me to experience it firsthand. And it was, it's just a hands-off technique of doing basically like it's a massage for your soul. And it helps to cleanse people and energy. And I also do home cleansing as well. So going in with Reiki, and oftentimes I start with a smudge and going through and cleansing people's home and bringing love and light bringing love, light, energy into their homes.
What did you name your business?
My business is Rise Above Holistic Care.
Based in YYC, and they can find you on Instagram and Facebook?
Yes. Yeah. And I also counsel in Ontario as well. So I can counsel in Ontario underneath I am a registered social service worker as well. So I can use that designation there.
Awesome. And then you're also working with a treatment center, doing things there, helping women, sharing your skills and shining your bright light. Yeah. And, I know on the days that you have to work,
yep,
and you got kids, and life goes on, and kids are kids, and kids get sick, and there's been a lot of sickness going around.
Yep.
What does a typical day look like, and what does a week look like for you as a single mom?
Yeah. So it never stops, except for when they sleep, if they sleep through the whole night. Because they're still so young, so they, dreams or whatever wake up. But basically, I get up, I get a shower, I get ready, I get them up. Takes about a half an hour to wake them up, and then I'm like getting breakfast made, and I get lunches made, and I get them to get dressed. And now they're a little bit more independent, so they get themselves dressed and brush their teeth and whatever. But then it's like the navigation of getting their boots on and getting their clothes on and getting out the door, because they have to be at the bus at a certain point and I have to be at work at a certain time. And that in itself is a chore. That is one of the hardest parts of my day, is getting them out the door, because they're just like resistant, defiant. I don't want to. But it ends up being a little bit of a shit show most days.
And in the odd morning, they'll decide to pick a fight with each other.
Yep. Oh yeah,
or to pick a fight with you.
Throw down with me. So it's nonstop, and it's like every day, because they go to school every day. So some days we have our good days, but most days it's like you either have a good morning or you get the kids to school, and then I get to work, and then I get them from work. After my day, I get them from their daycare, and then I get home and I'm making dinner, and then they're usually sitting on their tablets because it's wintertime, so not much to do right now. Or they go outside in the summer and they play, and then we come in, have some little bit of connection before bedtime, and I put them to bed by like 8:30, and then I get a little bit of time to myself in that time to be able to like take a bath or maybe read a book or scroll on my phone, and then I go to bed, and then I wake up and I do it all over again. So it's constantly nonstop.
Is it lonely?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. It can be really lonely. Yeah. Yeah.
When you're in those moments of like, Jesus, what are the thoughts that you wish you could have for help?
Yeah, my thoughts always go to, I wish I had a supportive partner. I wish I had a man in the house to be able to fucking correct these kids. Hey, that's all they need from a man, and they'd stop, right? But for me, it's like they laugh at me. They think I'm freaking a joke. I'm like, no, I'm actually serious. And then they're like, you're so mean. I'm like, I'm only mean because I got to this point because you didn't listen the first 100 times I asked you. So it's hard as a single, like it's hard as a mom because I feel like the moms are the nurturers. They're empathetic. They're, you know, for me, I have such a soft spot for them, and I've parented a lot from guilt. I parented a lot from guilt of like leaving their dad and then relapsing, and you know, and now it's like setting boundaries with them, creating a routine for them, and having them listen to me. Oftentimes it doesn't feel like I'm heard, and it feels really defeating, and it can be really draining in a day. And lonely, like you said. It is absolutely, it can be lonely. There's times where I'm like, fuck, I wish I had somebody here, you know, and then trying to date somebody, well, fuck.
Tell us, like, what's that been like?
Well, that's been hard. I think it's been really hard. I think because you don't want to involve the kids right away, right? And so for me, trying to find time to be able to get out of the house and go date somebody without having to pay a sitter, which is expensive in itself, getting to go out and actually like date someone and get to know them, it's like, yeah, it's really, really hard. I found it challenging because like people are afraid of kids. My kids are a lot. And so that comes into play too, because it's like, holy, because I share how my day is going, you know, with my prospective partner. And then that probably scares the shit out of people because it's like, oh my God, what the fuck, right? Like Ocean was trying to stab me with a knife yesterday, you know, like this is my reality of my life. But yeah, I found it to be a big challenge in the dating, and my kids are very protective. And so they don't want me to date anybody, you know, and like they're very much attached to me. And so if somebody is coming into my life, Ocean's getting mad. And not so much Kennedy, but Ocean's getting mad. Like he will tell me how it is, you know? And so I have to deal with little parents again. That's what it feels like. I have parents all over again telling me how to live my life. And I'm like, no, guys, I'm the parent, but you know, they just want to be like, nope, you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been pretty challenging.
Can I tell the viewers about our experience?
Yeah.
So like you and I dated for a short while.
Yeah.
And you know, two humans going through different emotions, and you know, you being a mom and me being super busy and doing the things that I do, but I'm going to say that for me it was a really good experience, and in a sense it's sad because you are such an awesome human.
Don't make me cry, Bill.
But we learned a lot, right? Like, it's one thing to say, okay, let's start dating, and you're a single mom and my kids are grown.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, well, I don't really want kids again, but I'm willing to like accept kids again. But then there's all these other subconscious feelings and emotions that I don't even know where the fuck they come from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I would say about you and how we navigated, like we did have some pretty serious talks about like what was going on.
Yep.
Do you want to share any experience from like that? You know, it wasn't that long, but it was honest and it was open and it was real.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that like compared to like maybe other experiences?
Yeah, I'd say definitely I was able to be vulnerable, more so vulnerable with you, and acknowledge my like wants and desires, and like how in a way of like just being able to be open to you and being comfortable with somebody, because in my own past experiences, I was afraid to talk about my feelings, and I was afraid to be like, okay, so where are we at? Like in my head, I could play the tape over and over again, but I was never able, out of fear, to be able to talk to somebody about it. And with you, I just felt like I was able to actually get over that fear, because I knew that you actually were like somebody who is working a program and somebody who is empathetic and understanding for people. And I just thought to myself too, if this is somebody that I'm going to have a partnership with, I shouldn't be afraid to fucking share how I'm feeling or ask a question, right? I think a lot of my life, I was afraid to ask questions for fear of being told no, or fear of, basically it was like being told no or not wanting to hear the truth in ways, right? So for the first time, I was actually able to honor myself and be authentic to myself and just say, hey, this is how it's coming up for me. How do you feel? Or this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a little bit of fear, or something shifted and I noticed it, because in my recovery journey too, I'm really becoming aware of my intuition and how strong it is, So just being able to be open and vulnerable with you is a really big growing moment for me.
Yeah, and likewise for me with you. And one of our moments that kind of come to light is like we had a little bit of a disconnect, and then we were kind of texting, and we had planned for a call, and we were going to talk. And like this has to do with like parenting and recovery. It really does, right? Yeah. Because me as a guy who's been single or like navigating life, my own way, coming into a relationship with young kids, like I'm really willing to accept that, but I don't really know what some of the resistance is, right? And I'm busy, and my partner deserves what they should get to, but you don't really know what that is until you spend a bit of time with each other, right? Yep. So we had, we texted, and we were going to have a talk, and then we got on the phone, and the small talk kind of went where it went, and then you were just said, fuck, I'm so scared. And then you just did it. And then I was like, holy shit. That was like, in my opinion, it was so perfectly done. You had already dealt with a lot of it, your own fears with your sponsor. Yep. You'd kind of dealt with it on the flank, and then you came to me in like a good way, and then I could respond in a good way. And like, that was pretty amazing moments. And we had a couple others, and like, and like I've been able to see how difficult it is for you as a mom who's got everything a guy would want, and you deserve the best of whatever it is from a partner, but having kids probably pushes a lot of men away. And I'm not saying that's what pushed me away. It was a combination of me being busy, you getting what you wanted, and kids, I'm sure, to some degree.
Yep.
But just to be able to have that conversation with you was fucking trippy.
Yeah.
Was trippy.
Yeah. And like, it was a big, huge moment for me to be able to like, okay. And I was sitting on my bed, and I was so like shaky. I was scared. I was scared, but I was like, hey, no, I'm going to be honest here. I felt something. I felt a shift. And I could just go on, blah, 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 but, and then we were able to like talk about it too. And that's where it comes to this healthy communication and learning how to have a relationship in recovery. Because I never had healthy relationships. I didn't have healthy communication. I didn't know how to express my needs. I didn't know how to share with somebody how I was actually fucking feeling, right? So and I'm grateful for our experience, because it also helped me know that I can do this, and I can talk about my feelings without somebody attacking me for it, right? And really truly look within myself and just know that like, if somebody's going to yell at me or something for sharing my feelings, that's not my problem. That's their problem, right? But at the same time, it was just, it was a bit of freedom for me to be able to see that growth in myself.
And even how we ended that, even though it's not like relationships aren't really ended, right? But we ended that part of our relationship, and I think it was done in such an amazing way. And I'm still learning, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I've never done half the shit that I'm doing because fucking I lived a different life and I'm just figuring shit out as I go and, appreciated like you figuring shit out for me and with me as I went on this one.
Yep.
And just how we ended it, I thought was pretty fucking unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Because I've never actually, here I am sitting across from you now having a conversation about how we, navigated that and how we ultimately decided that we're not going to date anymore. And like, there's no resentment. We did it, like you said, we did it with love. So there's no hard feelings. And, this doesn't mean that it's like our relationship in the sense of like dating in that kind of manner, but we still are able to maintain a friendship, I would think, and move forward. And like, you were put in my path for a reason and I was put in your path for a reason. And we, the creator had a different path for us to be able to come together and connect. Because I think we're in alignment in a lot of ways. In our work and advocacy and recovery and spirituality. And, you taught me so many things and I'm super grateful for that too. But I know that there's a lesson in it. And I'm grateful that I can see that today and not hold any fucking resentment. So, right. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So to finish off the episode, and we're way over, but that's okay because I never set a time. Who would your message be for? Single moms trying to navigate parenthood, finding a partner, just women in it. Who would you want to give a message to?
Yeah, it would definitely be the moms in recovery, like the moms who are trying to make it all work and make it all happen. And to like just all of it comes together. All of it is a part of being a mom. And I'd say single moms definitely, because that's where I'm at. Like moms for sure, moms in recovery, but single moms have it different, and it's I'd say all moms, honestly. All moms, because we all have it and the men are usually off working and the moms are home having to take care of it all. So like, I fucking see you, and the thing is for me is like, I'm here to be a support for moms and or women in general, and men too. But I definitely just am drawn to helping moms in recovery.
Mm-hmm. And they could reach out to you on Instagram or whatever if they ever needed a talk.
Absolutely. Yep. My messenger is open and, I also like to support people so it doesn't always have to be within my business scope. So I sponsor women as well. And, I'm open to just being that support for somebody if they need support. If you need someone to reach out to, reach out because it's so important. We can't do this alone.
That's it. We don't do it alone and we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, you know what? I really thank you for coming out and being a part of this. And, I thought this interview was amazing. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing so much of your heart with us. And, I look forward to our friendship growing and look forward to seeing you grow and what can happen in life for other women around you and yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Hi.
Hi. Peace out.